Hello, and welcome to the Outdoorsy Diva podcast. I'm your host, Lauren, the Outdoorsy Diva. Thanks for joining. All right, you guys, welcome to another episode of the Outdoorsy Diva podcast. We are continuing Great Outdoors Month. This is the very last day of June. And our guest in this series today is Mountain Mike. Y'all, Mike is so dope. Mountain Mike is on Instagram if you follow him, and I promise when you see these pictures, you're gonna be like, who is this dude? I need to know all about him. I need to know what he does. He definitely blesses my screen on a daily basis with some dope content. So say hey to the people, let them know who you are.
Oh, thank you. That was such a nice welcome. I wasn't expecting all of that.
We are legit on here, Mountain Mike.
I love the warm welcome. I just do what I can, take a little picture, flick here, flick there. But like you said, I'm Mountain Mike. Hey, everybody. um, but yeah, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for, I have to tell y'all that Miss Outdoorsy Diva reached out, and when I saw her profile, I'm like, I'm always, anytime I find a Black person who hikes, I'm like, oh, I just have to follow them off GP because one, they're potential customers, and two, it's just like there's not too many of us out here. So it's like it's good to see someone, in the space that is familiar.
For sure. Now, and let everybody know, who you are and what you do.
So like you said, my name is Mountain Mike. I am a Black hiker who has recently started a hiking travel business, like yourself, where I host local group hikes in the SoCal area. I'm based in Los Angeles, but I travel a lot to Northern California and Nevada, Las Vegas area, because there's some really great hiking out there.
So I also run a destination hiking travel business called Destination HL. The HL stands for Hike Life. And what it is essentially is that I coordinate destination hiking trips. So I do all the logistics, find our lodging, plan our itinerary. And my twist with the destination hiking trips is that it's the ultimate luxurious destination hiking trip. So I tried my best to find luxurious accommodations. So like the first trip I did was to Yosemite. Tried to go see the firefall, but because of the weather this year, wasn't able to actually see the firefall. But we stayed at this place called the Tenaya Lodge, which I would highly recommend anybody that's going to Yosemite is to stay there. It's 2 miles from, I think, the west entrance of the park, but totally worth it. And I highly recommend staying in the Explorer cabins. Like, bump the rooms, go get you a cabin, because the cabins are so not like, it's like a house essentially that you get. And it's 2 bedrooms, got the kitchenette. It was, I don't know, because I had the group, I came with a group, like they gave us like this nice fruit and wine basket, and it had Pinot Noir in it. And I was like, how do they know my favorite wine?
I love it. I love it. Here's what's funny. So our businesses are basically like brother and sister businesses because Adventure is a Lifestyle is my trip planning part. And I started planning luxury travel trips, but with a side of adventure. So people wanted to travel like Outdoorsy Diva. So there's the diva element and then there's the outdoorsy element. And my first one was to Asheville. So that is so cool that we like kind of have the same kind of idea in it. So now I feel like you just planned my West Coast trip for me.
I mean, or we come together and then,
For sure.
I'm even trying to do international next. Like I really want to do South Africa, like do a South Africa
Yes.
and like do Table Mountain and then do the safari and all that stuff. Like I see that as a vision, and you can speak to this as like it's hard planning and coordinating for a bunch of people. You know, especially if you're coordinating travel for people like all across the country. Or even outside of the country, and trying to make sure that flights align and that people
Yep.
get there at a certain time, and then and then also just learning about scheduling, and putting making sure that you have enough buffer time in between your events, because what I learned, what I forget a lot of times because I am a man, is that it doesn't take me a long time to get ready.
Right.
Like I don't have to get up and sit for like an hour just to get my mind right and figure out what I'm about to do with my hair and my face. And before I actually start getting ready, and that could take 2 hours. So that was one of those valuable lessons that I learned, is that I have to be cognizant of all of the people on my trip and make sure that I put in enough time within reason, because
Within
also it's
reason.
like you gotta, people, when you're coming on these trips, you have to be mindful that there are other people on the trip as well. And if you're late, you're holding up the group,
Right.
and it's
And a,
affecting someone else's.
and a lot of times, especially when there's a nature element, like you're trying to get somewhere early before the crowds, before the sun gets stupid, or before some weather rolls in. So I was kind of like, my first itinerary was really aggressive too. And they were like, we got to be up and out at what time? I'm like, listen, y'all
Right.
said you wanted a waterfall hike. So
Exactly. So I'm just trying to give it to you.
I'm
So
trying to
like,
give
I'm
you
using
what you
word.
want. So it was like waterfall hike, but then reward you with wine tasting. So, but
Mhm.
I totally can see us teaming up to do some dope stuff. That will
Okay.
be
Yeah.
really cool. My best friend was my planning help. Thank goodness, because I don't like dealing with people. That part of it, I really don't. But I love taking people. I love being the guide. I love planning the activities and seeing people be exposed to nature for the first time. But the logistical part, y'all can have that. I don't like that part.
It's funny. It's like, I feel like the business is literally like the intersection of all of my interests, and it uses a lot of my talents and like background. So it's like you got the event planning aspect of it, and ever since middle school, hell, I would even say elementary school, because I was always in student government and leadership. So it's like, with student government and leadership, you're the students planning all of the events. So like I was always a part of like the prom planning committee and homecoming, and I was senior class president, so I did all of the senior class trips and events and all those types of things, and then it just progressed into college. I went to UCLA, and if you're a Black person that goes to a predominantly white institution, PWI, oftentimes those Black people are involved in a lot of different things and organizations that require programming. And one of the major things that I was a part of, was our African Student Union hosted what was called an admit weekend, where we would invite all of the recently admitted Black students for a weekend, basically trying to convince them to come to university. So it's like that was the first time I got to experience like large scale planning events, and like specifically I had to deal with coordination for travel. So it was like ground flights,
Oh,
uh,
wow.
all of that stuff, and having to coordinate pickup schedules and all those things. So it's like I'm weird where I like shit like that, because it's like a puzzle. So it's like, okay, I need this to be done, but in order to do this, I'm gonna have to this around and then put this here. So there's that. But then also too, it's that why I really like doing the group hike aspect, you know, even if it's like local or if it's travel, is that I love connecting with people, and I've found out through the years that part of my purpose in life is connecting people.
Mm.
Um, so it's like that can, you know, that can manifest in different ways. And with hiking, it's about me creating the space and bringing people into the space and connect people that way. um, like my first trip, it turned out to be like, it turned into like an incubator for like purpose driven entrepreneurship. So
Oh,
it's like,
wow.
so it was like literally it was like helping people, because we're gonna get into it. Like I've had one hell of a mental health journey. So I've picked up, you know, along the way, I've picked up all of these tools and skills to like get to the root of people's problems and trauma and everything. So it's like when I'm in these group settings and when you're on hikes, you've got that one-on-one, or just you've got that intimate timing where you can have these conversations and pull something out of someone where they didn't know that they had within them, and then take it a next step further. And it was like, so how could you turn that into a business type of thing? Because it's like what we have business is like, how do you turn hiking into a business? Outside is free, like for the most part. So it's
Right.
like, so what am I paying you for? And it's like, it's the experience. um
Exactly. Exactly. I love it. I always love to hear people talk about their passions, and even to be blessed enough to have found one of your passions and your purpose, and then being able to monetize that and turn that into something that benefits them but then other people. So now let's talk about this name.
yes.
Mountain Mike. That is super unique. So how did you come up with that name?
So you're going to laugh, and your West Coast fans are going to laugh too, because I actually got it from a pizza place called Mountain Mike, but Mike spelled, Mike. So the name came about during a time in my life where I needed to remove myself off of social media. But I'm also a millennial, and I was like, that is ludicrous. How I am not removing. Do you know how hard I have worked to build this presence? Like,
Okay.
hell no. Um, so just more backstory. So I was a victim of sexual abuse as a teenager by the hands of my choir director, from my church choir. When I was 25 years old, I decided that I no longer wanted to like live with this trauma in the best way, and I saw fit. And the way the universe worked, it was that, okay, I need to address this situation. So initially, I was 25. I had just got like my first apartment in North Hollywood, which is, right here in Los Angeles, but in a suburb. It's a suburb of Los Angeles. But had just got my first place in a very trendy area. I think I had got like my first real full time salaried position. I wasn't making shit, but it was the first time that I had got um, a salaried position with benefits, and this was 2014. So I had graduated college in 2011, and that was like after the recession and all of that. So like coming out of college, it was hard to find a job because I was competing for entry level positions with people who are halfway into their career. Uh, so it's like all these things are setting up the story. So it's like, okay, I finally had found a job, I had got my own place. I had also that year had decided that I was tired of living a charade. I was tired of having these instances. So basically, when I talk about charade, I was talking about my sexuality, where my abuse, I felt that my abuse brought on homosexuality, or at least that's what I told myself.
Mm.
Uh, so for years, I leaned on to like my attraction to men having to do with me being abused, but that wasn't necessarily the case. Um, so in 2014, the year I was turning 25, I was like, you know what? I'm grown. Like I have, I pay my own bills. And at the time I had a falling out with my mother. And her and I weren't really speaking at that time. So it was like, and I'm like, and my mom ain't in the picture. And it's like, that's, pretty much like the only authority figure that I had to like please. And since she wasn't in my life, it was like, so why are you not like, if this is something you like, why are you depriving yourself of that? Because I didn't have like the religion guilt, where it's like, I'm going to hell because I like men. Uh, it wasn't that. It was more so in my head and how I had been conditioned to view masculinity. I didn't feel like a man because of what my sexuality was. So essentially, I lived a life where I hyper masculinized. I had just got tired of like realizing that I wasn't living my life for myself. So I was just like, you know what? Also it was New Year's. So it was New Year's of 2014. So also that was the year that Frank Ocean had came out. And he had
Okay.
like put up this letter on his Tumblr and basically him saying that he loved the man and the woman. I saw that as well as there was a YouTube personality named Trey Melvin that I had saw come out as well. And he's a little younger than me. And I just was like, I remember I had gotten food poisoning 2 days before Christmas. I got salmonella poisoning 2 days before
Oh
Christmas.
Lord.
Right. So like I'm at home trying to recover. I was, snatched because I had been throwing up for the last 3 days. So it was like the best diet I had ever been on. And I just remember just sitting on my couch and it's like the New Year's and I'm like, I had no one around. It was just like, what are you doing? Like, why aren't you living for you? And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna live for me. So I decided to start embracing my sexuality and, started going out, started dating. Um, but then there came this point where now we're in the month of August and I had moved into my new place. And, like I said, just got my new place, finally had a decent amount, decent job and of a salary, which was like a thing, that I was, trying to reach at that time. But then also I started living my life fully. But I wasn't happy. So it's like all of that you would think is like, oh, well, I've been, started, being me, but I realized that even with me starting to embrace my sexuality, I realized that I still had a lot of these like mental blocks as it related to my sexuality. Like I still never felt comfortable, although I'm interacting with men. So my mother asked me, she was like, how do you feel? Because we had just like went and bought a bunch of stuff from IKEA and, made my place real cute and stuff. And I just like, I feel like I should be happier. I
Mm.
don't, and in that moment, she was like, what do you think it is? And in that moment, like the first thing that popped into my head was my abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah, I just feel like because of this abuse and what I later realized was what happened with my sexuality is I never was an active participant in exploring my sexuality. What would happen to me is I would have men come on to me and somehow, we would have, you know, uh, we'll just say hookup or outside of the abuse. But like literally since the abuse, every man that I had been with um, was not my decision.
Right.
Um, and I just wanted I just wanted to have my power back, because it was like, I'm tired of everyone making these decisions on my life and people putting their preconceived notions about me onto me, because it had been a cycle in my life where I felt like my entire life people have projected their own traumas and insecurities onto me, and because I'm an empath, it just stuck with me. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and and I had been carrying it around forever. So yeah, so basically, my mother asked, "What do you want me to do?" She said, "Do you want me to contact the church?" And when she actually said, she said, "Do you want me to email the church?" And I was like, "Sure," because I was like, an email will do something. And me thinking that, I was like, I don't know if I'm ready, like, for all of that, because I think the only like notable, like, something that was in the news that was related was Bishop Eddie Long. I don't know if you remember that
I
story.
do.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so like that had came forward, and I saw how that happened. I was like, ooh, I don't know. Like, yes, I've been able to live my life in a certain way where on paper, I have a clean record, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm, on paper, I'm money. And what I recognize in all of those other cases is that they were able to, um, basically, question the credibility of the
The
victim.
victim, right? The victim shaming that comes with that when you come forward.
And particularly in my case, there was another victim that had came forward during the time I was actually being abused. But basically, the church and the choir director were able to sweep it under the rug. They were able to write it off as if the relationship, or that it was a relationship that happened after this victim had turned, excuse me, had turned 18, and basically tried to write it off as if he was like a scorned lover. Uh, Whereas actually the abuse started when he was like 11 or 13. Uh,
Wow.
yeah. Uh, so when my mother contacted, so I thought my mother was just going to send an email. She ends up, as she's looking for an email address online, she finds a phone number, calls the phone number, and it is one of, I think she was the head, so it was the head person over the church's trustee board. It's a woman named Evelyn Frazier. I'll never forget this lady's name. Uh, so my mother's disclosing my abuse to her. And you know what this woman asked my mother? First, she asked her, "How old is your son?" Because we need to check to see if it's still under the statute of limitation. Swear to God, that's what she said. And then the second thing she asked, she said, "Well, is your son gay?" As,
Wow.
as if that is a justification as to what, to the abuse, essentially. Uh,
Right.
and of course, that pissed my mom off. And what my mother did, as soon as she hung up the phone with the lady, my mother went and looked up what the statute of limitation was. At the time, there was still a statute of limitation for sexual assault against minors, and that statute of limitation was 26. Now, I
Okay.
told you I
And
didn't
you
come
were
forward until I was 25.
25. Uh-huh.
And this was August, and my birthday's in January. So I basically had 4 months to build a case against my abuser. So what I had to do was I had to make a police report, and in which I had to like fly down to Sacramento, give like the initial statement, and then come back and then do more of a longer in-depth interview. Had to give them more witnesses. So because I already knew about the previous victim, and the abuse the church took place out of was not my like home church. My
Okay.
family didn't go there. So just to kind of help set the scene, I only went to that church to go sing, because they had a like a banging ass children, like a youth choir. And like at the time I had never really sang with a lot of people my age. I was always singing with, adults.
Right.
Um, so it was like I was really happy to come to this church because it was also my best friend. He played the piano for the choir, so that's the whole reason I'm there. And then I get groomed and coerced into a sexual relationship with this abuser over time. So, so because I was aware of the other victim, I instantly reached out to the other victim and was like, so I never told you this, but I was a victim too. Here's what happened. I'm coming forward. I need your help. And because you got to think, he had tried to do this once in his early 20s and it didn't happen for him.
Right. And got
So you can imagine,
ridiculed.
yes, and you can imagine what somebody that would happen to, what effect that would have on their life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so there, not that there was hesitation on his part, it just was like him telling me is like, dude, like basically I've been through this before. And I know what they're going to do and how and I saw what they did. So I knew, me being very strategic, like I thank God for me being as smart as I am. Outside of being naive and having to learn life and stuff, but at least when it comes to like strategy, I'm very smart. So it's like, okay, like I saw how they were able to poke holes in his story. But like, although our abuse was the same, our backstories were like different. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Whereas me, I wasn't a problem child. I never had like issues with like getting in trouble, those type of things. So like if you're looking at my records, they're clean. You'll see degrees, you'll see outstanding awards, and all of these various different things. So it's like you can't say a person that has all of these things is lying.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was the thing, is like I'm not lying, and then also it's because of the amount of detail I was able to remember. Um, Also, it's like, yeah, this isn't the same thing. So just to speed it up, because I could talk about this forever, um, we were able to build enough of a case for the California District Attorney to take on the case. So because of that happened, I needed to get off of social media because we were going to go to trial. Um,
Gotcha.
so yeah, so it was a criminal trial first because I was still in the statute of limitation, but also um, a civil trial because I was suing the church, because the church had prior knowledge because they had another victim, and they mismanaged that and didn't like adequately um, like notify parents of the members of the choir. Uh,
Mm.
yeah, there was basically a bunch of protocols that them being an employer of the choir director, they did not cover themselves properly. Uh,
Got you. I got you. That makes sense. So,
yeah.
and so listen, as people say, you never know what's in a name, right? So this it you becoming this mountain Mike persona, like there's a whole testimony
Yeah.
behind that.
And if you and I, so when I was coming up with the name, it was like, okay, Mount Mike is cool, because I think at first I had found like this lumber. I found like this logo. It was like a lumberjack, and it was like, huh. And then and for some reason I just thought of the pizza place, Mount Mike, and I was like, I was like, what if I change Mike to microphone, and it stands for finding your voice, which is the mic part, while overcoming insurmountable odds, the mountain part. And I was like,
Okay.
I like that. I like that. So then that's how Mount Mike was born, is finding your voice while overcoming insurmountable odds.
That's beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful. And
Mhm.
so first just, you know, I'm proud of you, number one, for being so open, so forthcoming, as a survivor of sexual abuse. You're no longer a victim, you're a survivor of that. And I commend you for being open, for sharing your story, for pursuing justice for yourself at that time in your life. I remember 25. That's a tough age. You know, you're really just coming into yourself as an adult, as truly being independent. So I can't imagine what a difficult thing that was, and grappling with your sexual identity all at the same time. Like, that's a lot. So, I commend you for you're here, for being here, being present, like here in the earth, in the universe, because just being candid, things like that take people out every day. That is not a small amount of trauma to deal with. So, I'm sending you virtual hugs right
Thank you.
now and
Thank you.
kudos through the
Thank you.
universe.
Thank you. No, it's you are totally right, and like I can say that I almost didn't make it a couple of times actually, and during this I remember. Funny enough, I'm going to make it full circle. Um, I remember there was a moment after the arrest had happened, and just basically my whole life had changed. Like people started finding out back home, and they was trying to figure me out, like, and all this stuff. And I remember I saw an episode of Dr. Phil, and it was the episode that had Nick Gordon. I don't know if that name sounds familiar to
It
you.
does. Who is Nick Gordon for our
Nick
audience?
Gordon, if you remember, was the son figure to Whitney Houston,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and it was his episode he had with Dr. Phil, and I just remember watching him cry and hearing him, and for some reason, like I just related to that pain that I heard, because up until that point, I hadn't been really emotional, because I had been conditioned is that is not to show emotion because that's weakness. Uh, so it's like you just kind of had to, put your chest up and let things roll off your back and, just suck it up. That was the thing, suck it up. So he was explaining how he took himself out and how he just couldn't deal with the pain. And I just was thinking, I was like, I got a bottle of tequila and some Vicodin that I could, imitate what he was talking about. Because I remember that day, it was just like, yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this and go through this because this is a lot. This is a lot, and I didn't expect for my life to change so dramatically so fast. And I remember I went home because I was watching it at work. I remember I was going home. It was about to set everything up, but something told me was roll you a blunt.
Mm.
I was like, okay. So I rolled me up a nice fat one too. And I remember I went on my balcony. I had my headphones on, and Brandy's "All in Me" from her Full Moon album came on. And I don't know if you've ever heard the song, but like the lyrics of the song is like, "There's so much going on. You can think of me when your hope is gone. You can think of me to get through anything. You can think of me. I'm here long as you need me. When nothing seems to work, you can think of me. Your heart is on a search. Let it come to me. I make it all reverse when you think of me. Maybe you can see new light through me." And then that, like when I heard that, it just broke me all the way down because it was like, so you forgot God and all of this? Like, you think this is just you out here? Like, there isn't a higher being than this? Do you think I would have left this to these people? No. And I let out that ugly cry, like you remember Intervention?
Yep.
I let one of those out, and it was like the release I needed, because I had just basically been holding all of this emotion in, and I hadn't had a release, and I finally released it. And I remember I called my friends and I said I called them all. I was like, I need you guys to come over here, because I knew that I needed. The voice also told me is like, do not leave yourself alone. Get
Mm.
people around you. So I had friends come over and they like came right over, and I had made the decision. I was like, I'm gonna move back home during this because this is something this is different. And it was like, normal situations you've been able to hold yourself down, but you need that support system, you need that family support system around you to hold you up so that you don't have to feel like you're holding yourself up like you have been feeling. And yeah, that was the story of how I almost took myself out, but thank God for weed and brandy. The alcohol, but the single. Uh,
Listen,
but
whatever he has to do to get our attention and get us to listen,
mhm.
he will do. I fully believe that.
We'll be right back with the rest of Mountain Mike's story after this break from our sponsors. Get your favorite travel prints from the Outdoorsy Diva collection of travel and nature photography. Visit outdoorsydiva.com/photography for prints, canvas, and even postcards.
Now, back to the Outdoorsy Diva podcast. Now, let's talk about your nature origin story. So, what sparked that love of nature, and what role has, nature and hiking played in your healing?
Okay. So growing up, I never really was like a nature person. Like, I hated bugs. I was always, you gotta keep your clothes clean. So I wasn't that never like to get dirty. Um, so it wasn't until college where I had put on a bunch of weight when I went to college because basically subconsciously I thought the reason why I got abused was because the way that I looked. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so I no longer wanted to be viewed as desirable. So I let myself go. And I had put on about like 60 pounds within like my freshman year of college. And I had started getting bullied by like my classmates, the black people, at UCLA, and they would the only thing like the things that they had on me were my what they perceived my sexuality to be and my weight. So I was like, oh, y'all don't know that I'm not ugly under all of this weight. So hold on real quick, let me lose some weight. And so like y'all can't talk shit no more. And I had a friend that um, had invited me to go. I think the first place we went to was the Baldwin Hills Scenic Overlook. Some people also call them the Culver City Stairs. Um, but basically, it's like the staircase that goes up mountains in a predominantly black, well, historically black neighborhood in LA. I got addicted to the adrenaline you get from like getting to the top of a mountain. So I just started looking up like what are some other hiking trails. So first, my friend also took me to Runyon Canyon. This was before Runyon became Runyon. Before the game got to Runyon and it became a popular place. Um, so we'd do Runyon Canyon. Then I remember I was at a Friendsgiving, and I was telling somebody that I'm like really getting into hiking, and they're like, there's waterfalls out here in LA. And I was like, in LA? They're like, yeah, there's a bunch of trails with waterfalls. I was like, stop lying. So then I just started Googling different hiking trails in Los Angeles. And I've ever since like 2010, I've just been hiking here. And yeah, it wasn't until I started like Mountain Mike was birthed, and I realized that I needed to tell my story, And the way that I was going to tell my story was through my hiking. Uh,
Okay.
so then I started venturing out. Was like, okay, I need to do different hiking trails just outside of LA. So that's when when I would go back up north, I'd start venturing out in Northern California, up in the Bay Area, and then when my sister relocated to Las Vegas, then that's when I started exploring, Red Rock Canyons and Valley of Fire and Lake Mead and there's even a hot spring, a Gold Strikes hot spring. I started frequenting those trails, and it wasn't and it was through that time that I realized it was like, hey, there's something else happening out here on these hiking trails. It's not me just getting in shape, because that was originally why I started hiking, because it was like better than the gym. I didn't. It was like, for some reason I used to hate treadmills and like having to like.
Same. Walking in place does not appeal to me. That ain't fun.
It's not fun at all. And you think it's like, literally, to go hiking, you literally have to force yourself, like you have to get back to the car. So
That part. It's like
it's like,
finish or die.
or die. Like, what do you want? Do you want to die, or do you want to get back to your car? You're gonna have to get your ass up and get some energy and get back to the car. So I like that, because it forced me to like push myself. And I started noticing, it was like, yo, you've been really like pushing yourself physically. Uh, and then I think once I started therapy, as soon as I like started my legal stuff, because my lawyers were like, yeah, one, we need to get you a diagnosis, and then two, it will be beneficial for you to see a professional. So I think as I started doing more doing more introspective work, and working within, I would use my hikes as a form of escape. So it was a form of escapism where, living in a major city is very stressful. Just living and moving around in a major city. So it's like the fact that I could drive, uh, you know, 20 minutes and I'm in a mountain somewhere and it looks like I'm not in LA, was like, it was very soothing for me. And it was nice to know that I had a home away from home,
Mm.
essentially. Um, then I started getting more, I started talking to myself more on my hikes, because before I would just go and have my music and just be trucking, trying to lose weight. But then I started taking the time to just start thinking about things. And when you're out in nature, and especially like depending on the trail and how vast you know the landscape is, it's like there's a lot of room for your mind to wander,
Mm-hmm.
because you got to think, it's like you're walking and you may hear something, and then that like may trigger a thought, or then you might see some birds flying, and then you're like following where this bird is, and then little do you know, you're thinking about something that's got you flying, and you're floating through that memory. um so it wasn't until um so I don't know if I'm pretty sure you saw this part on my website about my mom and me no longer having a relationship with my mother.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, eventually it got to the point where it was just so toxic, and I no longer wanted that toxicity to affect my life, because it started to affect my health. I had
Mm-hmm.
started putting weight. I was getting more sinus infections and headaches more often. I later found out that that was related to stress.
Yep. Stress
Um,
will manifest itself in some very strange ways in the body, but that's our first signal that something is
mhm,
wrong with you and you need to you need
right.
to fix that.
That's why, if you remember in that our nature therapy
Yes.
thing, I was asking about the lower back, because that's what I found out about adrenal glands and how they regulate stress. And like when your body is overstressed and your adrenal glands are blocked, that's when the lower back pains will happen. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and I've learned that to unblock the adrenal glands, besides is like try to de-stress, is magnesium. Um,
Okay.
is adding magnesium, and I use the Calm supplement, which also helps with sleep. You take it at night, and you have the proper dosage of magnesium, and it also helps you have a restful night's sleep.
Oh, and just to bring our listeners into our little inside
Yeah.
side conversation. So, Chris and I did a forest therapy kind of a mini training session with Cultured Forest that she offered to us virtually. And that's where we're both like, "Hey, I know you.
Right.
Probably still on IG."
Yep.
And so now, now Mike is the homie, but that's what he's talking about. And and he brought up a lot of that about how, stress manifests in the body and just how we can use forest therapy as, a way to combat some of those things and de-stress.
Yeah. Yes. Sorry about that. Didn't provide the
No,
context.
that's fine. That's fine. That's what I'm here for.
Uh,
Okay. So I love your nature origin story. Honestly, like it started so non-traditionally. Like you really didn't start it for yourself. You started it because people were being negative and bullying you about your physical appearance, right? But
mhm.
out of that, out of people's negativity and what was meant for evil,
Mhm.
came what?
Right.
Came what was meant for evil, turned out to be for your good, not only for your good, but it took you back on this journey now to your purpose. Like,
Yes. And that's the crazy part, is that I never I like I said, I was never a nature person. And it's so happened that along my journey, hiking has been such a critical piece of it. Like when I was stressed out during those trials, I would go hiking. When life would happen with my mom, I would go hiking, because I was just like, I need to get away. Like I need to get out of my place. I need I need nature. And I so eventually I cut off the relationship with my mother, because my final straw was, she had been saying a lot of like nasty and hurtful things, and a lot of them I just ignored, or I wouldn't even read. Like you can see text messages, and I can tell by your topic sentence you was on some bullshit, so I just wouldn't even read that. But the last thing I remember reading, and I remember making the conscious decision to open up that contact and then swipe block, is my mother said she should have used the money that my father gave her for the abortion to abort me.
oh
And
no.
I was like, lady, you're really sick and sad. And it was like, lady, you're really sick and sad. And yeah, I blocked her, and that was September of 2018. So I was supposed to finally have my civil trial against the church in February of 2019. If you remember, this whole process started August of 2014.
Right. Right. That's a long time.
Yes, people, I don't think y'all understand that lawsuits, they don't just happen overnight. They are over the span of multiple years. They say 3 to 5 years is a typical lawsuit, and can be even it can be even longer if parties aren't trying to settle. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so um, so because I knew I had a trial coming up, and it actually, I didn't mention, is that when I came forward, um, during the criminal trial, I also used my media and marketing background to get the word out and get it out in the media in order to get other victims to come forward. And I was able to get 2 other additional victims attached to the case. So we didn't even go have a criminal trial. Our abuser took a plea deal, and went to prison. He's since gotten out. Crazy, right? But one of those victims actually attached themselves to my lawsuit as well. So um, regardless, I knew I was going to settle with the church, but I knew that there was still going to be a trial for the other plaintiff, and I was wanted to show my full support and everything. So I needed to take time off of work to deal with the trial, and then also just like take some time for myself. Like it had been 5 long years. Uh,
Yeah.
and then some if you think of add also the trauma on top of that of having to go through all of that, so it's like really over a decade or so. So I made a decision that um, because I was in therapy and I was talking to my therapist about, I was like, yeah, I just need like it would be so nice to have a break. Like I have never had a break in life. I have never been, because it's being Black, like we have to bust our ass like to be successful. The amount of energy and work it takes for Black people to be successful
Yep.
is a ridiculous amount of energy that I don't think most people can comprehend.
Yep.
And I think now people are finally starting to get it, like now. But like I had never had a break. It was like I went straight to high school, through to college, into the workforce, and then I threw this, dealing with my trauma and like you said, and then trying to approach and embrace my sexuality. Um, all these things where it's just like I was starting to feel worn out.
Mm-hmm.
I decided to take a medical leave of absence for 2 months from work, so that I could, be available for the trial, but then also have some time for myself. And also in 2018, I had applied for grad school, for film school, at USC, because I knew that part of my purpose also was to tell my story, uh,
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like my story could help someone else, and just hearing what I went through and how I did it could be helpful to other people. And I had learned, or just what I saw is that as I shared my story with other people, it would unlock something in them and they would begin to start sharing with me. And when it first started happening, it started freaking me out because it was just people I did not expect to have like dealt with like sexual abuse, just would start telling me. And there was something about using my vulnerability as a tactic to disarm, uh,
Mm-hmm.
the person I'm talking to. Because it's like, if I'm able to bare my soul with you, it makes it easier for the other person to share.
And were these while you were on hikes with people that this sharing was happening?
A lot of it was while I was on hikes. A lot of it would be on hikes, because yeah, that would be the times, or they would just be, um, if I was catching up with someone and we were out for drinks and the libations is going, and then we start sharing. I'm talking about like that question. It's like, how are you? What are you up to? And it's like, well, so my life consists of taking down
Right.
the church and my abuser. And it was like that was like a big portion of my life that it was like I had no choice but to talk about it, because it was like I wasn't doing anything else really but focusing in on that. So when I decided to take this leave of absence, I was like, oh, I should go travel someplace. So I should, I got this time. It's like, we'll go out the country. And I got in, I don't know what exactly inspired, but I just remember hearing a voice say like, there's tons of places in the US, hiking specifically, that you have not been to. Um, and you should take this time, because also like where I needed to be, like I needed to be in Sacramento because that's where the trial was going to take place in, so I could do some trails up in Northern California that I hadn't done. Um, and I was actually trying to go like hit Yosemite because I had never been to Yosemite at that point. And then I knew that I wanted to go to Las Vegas because, and also I hadn't seen my sister during that entire like ordeal. So I wanted to go see my baby sister and like love on her and take her on a hiking trip. with me. So I actually started out with her, and because she lives in Vegas. So first we did Valley of Fire because I was like, I want to get you ready. And then the trip we did was we drove to Page, Arizona to do Horseshoe Bend. Um, and we didn't do the Antelope Canyon. My sister found a company that did private Horseshoe Bend and Slot Canyon tours because they had their own, because there was a Navajo
Mm-hmm.
brand company. They had access to their own Slot Canyon comparable
Mm-hmm.
to the Antelope.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and but without all of the visitors, and it was just our tour group with maybe like 10 people in this like mile long Slot Canyon. So like if you see the picture, I mean the Slot Canyon, the reason
Yes.
why it's so dope is because it literally was just me, it was like us and 10 other people in this mile long Slot Canyon. So it had ample space, time, had the tripod set up. Uh, but in that trip, I was like, because um, I was applying for grad school and wanted to tell my story, and I knew that hiking was going to be the vehicle I was going to use to tell my story. I was like, why don't I film the trip? So I went, got a bunch of like, bought a bunch of iPhones because it was like I didn't want to like spend a bunch of money like on getting camera equipment, and it's heavy, and all of that stuff. Is like, get you some iPhones that shoot in 4K, get you a stabilizer, get you a tripod, and hit the road. So what I did was for 2 months I hiked and traveled. So I got to did the Horseshoe Bend, then went up to Northern California, and I did some trails in like Marin County. I did the Alamere Falls, so like that big waterfall that was in the Bay Area. And then I had always had this vision when I was everything was said and done with all of my legal proceedings. I had always had this vision of Hawaii and
Mm.
being in a waterfall. I think I may have dreamed it one like years ago, where it's like, okay, when all of this shit is done, you go in Hawaii, you're gonna take all your homies with you, and you're going to celebrate in Hawaii. So basically, that was the first trip that I had planned. Like that was like the inspiration for Destination HL,
Okay.
because I wanted to do Stairway to Heaven. And yeah, went and did Stairway to Heaven, and like I felt like I got reborn. Like literally, I just put up a picture not too long ago from that hike, and said, like the phoenix rise from the ashes. Like I literally felt like I was being reborn because it had that beautiful the sunset,
Yes.
and it
I
was so great. Like the pictures do it justice, but like in person to see that happen, like you're coming up this mountain and you're seeing the sun go down, and then once it hits the clouds, and then everything lights up to that fiery red. Like that shit was I had never seen nothing like that in my life.
So I have to tell you about this picture. I don't know if you saw my comment. It actually brought tears to my eyes. No lie. I literally just had this whole conversation with my bestie, and I told her, so 2020 has not been kind to me. I mean, it's not been kind to anybody on the planet, but it has been particularly unkind to me first. It literally like burned me down to some of my lowest points of just so you know launched the traveling business, then COVID happened, and then got laid off in the same week, the week of my birthday, and then had, some heartache trauma that I had to deal with. And then my mother had a knee replacement surgery, and I was her only caregiver. Yeah, talk about toxic. I know something about that. So it was just been stress, just the level of stress that I've been at even as a single mom, I've never been this stressed. I've never been in a position financially where I don't know what I'm going to do, right? And
Mhm.
so I felt like I was at my lowest. I was so low. I was trying to pull myself out of it. And it was almost overnight, suddenly, all of these amazing things have started to happen for the business, for the brand, for for every component of my life. It was a literal flip, but it's all things I never saw, that I never planned, that I could never dream. And I told her, I said, you know what? I feel like 2020 is my Phoenix year. I feel like I'm being reborn into this whole other version of me. And I'm 39, I'll be 40 next year. So how apropos that right before I truly hit that midlife, milestone, I'm getting stripped of all these things that I thought were important. And now
Mhm.
I'm coming out of that with all of these new things and new perspective and new purpose. So when I saw your picture and what you said about the Phoenix, I was like, God, I hear you. I hear you. I believe in confirmation. I do. I don't think that was happenstance by
Mhm.
any stretch. So yeah, y'all gotta go find that picture. But absolutely, I feel you like 100% how you feel and feeling like you're being reborn. It was beautiful.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that. That like gave me goosebumps. I love hearing that.
I hope you have enjoyed part one of this episode with Mountain Mike. He was an absolute joy to have on the show. I know we got into some really heavy topics in this episode, and I wanted to do them justice. I didn't want to cut too much because I feel that his testimony and his triumph can resonate with a lot of people and help a lot of people to heal. So stay tuned. You get a bonus episode of the Outdoorsy Diva podcast for part two of Mountain Mike's episode and interview. And on this next episode, you'll get to hear some really crazy and funny travel and hiking stories. So you don't want to miss that episode. Check it out. It will be dropping later on this week. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, make sure you subscribe to the Outdoorsy Diva podcast. Be sure to check out Misadventures of an Outdoorsy Diva blog on outdoorsydiva.com. You can also keep up with me and my adventures, so check out all of my social channels. Find Outdoorsy Diva on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest.